I, 30 years old, female, have been living as an expatriate in Austria for nearly 8 years. I was born and raised in the United States, and my mother is American, while my father is a British native who moved to the US in his 20s when my parents got married. Although I identify strongly as American, I also exhibit many British cultural influences in my behavior and mannerisms that sometimes confuse people. Growing up, my parents prioritized travel, wanting me to experience more than just the American perspective and way of life. As a result, I am very aware of the stereotypes surrounding Americans and their supposed ignorance of other cultures, countries, and geography. Last night, my husband, 35 years old Austrian, and I went to dinner with one of my closest friends, Sarah, 32 years old female, and her husband. Sarah, who is also an expatriate from Costa Rica, is married to a Swiss man. They live just over the border in Switzerland, about 25 minutes away from us. Our friendship has been incredibly important, as we have bonded over our faith and the experience of being women of color living in predominantly white European countries. During dinner, Sarah's husband excused himself to use the bathroom, leaving Sarah, my husband, and me to converse. The conversation turned to the live musician nearby, and my husband noticed a sticker on the musician's computer that resembled the Texas state flag. Curious, he asked me about it. Although it looked like the Texas flag to me, I wasn't completely certain because I am not from Texas. However, I expressed doubt because the man clearly had an accent and did not sound American to me. Nevertheless, given the diversity within the United States, it was still a possibility. Sarah then interjected, stating that she thought it was actually the flag of Chile. We looked it up and discovered that she was correct. This led us to discuss the similarities between the Texas state flag and the Chilean flag. Here's where things took a turn. I began discussing the geographical proximity of Texas to Latin and South America. However, I made sure to clarify that I was aware they were not physically adjacent, because I know about the stereotype that Americans lack knowledge of geography. Before I could continue my sentence, Sarah interrupted and said, "That's very American of you to say," while both she and my husband laughed. I felt visibly hurt by their reaction and explained that I did not intend to insinuate that the two regions were nearby. I tried again, explaining that due to Texas having historical ties to Mexico and being in proximity to various Latin American countries, there are undoubtedly cultural influences from those regions in the U.S., thanks to the immigrants and expatriates who bring their traditions with them. However, Sarah once again cut me off the moment I mentioned Mexico and proceeded to tell me that Chile and Mexico are not the same country. Furthermore, she reminded me that Chile is in the southern hemisphere of South America. Her condescending tone and words made me angry, and I informed her that I was aware of where Chile is, having visited the country multiple times. In addition to my childhood travels, I had worked as an international flight attendant, primarily flying to Latin and South America, allowing me to visit a total of 52 countries. Sarah and my husband continued to laugh at my expense, so I decided to stop attempting to explain and simply sat there. After a few minutes, I chose to leave my portion of the bill on the table and walk back to where we were staying, which was about a 10-minute walk from the restaurant. I felt the need to cry and did not want to have an emotional breakdown in public. We had already finished eating and were waiting for the bill anyway. My husband caught up with me and tried to explain that Sarah did not mean any harm, and that they did not think I was foolish. However, I asked him not to defend her behavior. I reminded him that we had previously discussed how challenging it is to live in Europe, where many Europeans assume I am uneducated or ignorant simply because I am American. 10 minutes later, Sarah came to our room to talk. She immediately began by mentioning how hurtful I was being and questioned whether it was worth having a fight. I told her not to speak down to me and reiterated that I did not seek an argument, but rather removed myself from the situation to avoid saying something I might regret due to my emotional state. Sarah claimed that I had hurt her and made her cry. I asked her how I could be at fault when she was the one who interrupted me before I had the chance to fully express myself. She insinuated that I was being ignorant, and I countered by stating that she didn't even know what I was going to say because she never allowed me to speak before passing judgment. I explained that my intention was to suggest that given the United States' history of adopting and appropriating cultural influences from Latin and South American countries, it wouldn't be surprising if the Texas flag was also inspired by the Chilean flag. Sarah then claimed to understand and admitted she hadn't realized that was what I was trying to convey. I also brought up the fact that this wasn't the first time she had made such remarks about me being very American. I let her know that I am fully aware that such comments are meant to allude to the supposed ignorance of Americans. In response, she argued that 9 out of 10 Americans are indeed ignorant, but she considered me to be the exception and did not think I was unintelligent. I expressed gratitude for her belief in me, yet I still found it bothersome that she frequently directed that comment at me, as it was demeaning and hurtful. She began insisting once again how much I had hurt her, and how the situation was pointless and not worth fighting about. I also conveyed to her that despite her good intentions, she sometimes makes me feel inadequate. For instance, she occasionally tries to translate for me, even though we both speak German. I had previously brought up this issue with her as well. This, combined with her comments about me being very American, feels demeaning and implies that she does not believe I am educated or integrated enough, even though my residency in this country requires me to pass extensive German language tests. In the end, we both apologized and said goodnight, but something still feels off to me. I am confused about how I am also considered at fault and why I was expected to apologize as well. Over the past 5 years, I have realized that, as a woman of color, I am often placed in situations where I find myself apologizing or having to comfort the person who has said hurtful things to me. I have been actively striving to break this pattern and hold others accountable for their words and actions. I believe that intention does not erase or justify the impact of hurtful behavior. So, am I the one to blame here? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. As an Austrian living in America, all I can say is that most Europeans have no idea about the US. They claim Americans are stupid for not knowing European geography, without mentioning that they have no idea what the capital of California is. I mean, taken by itself, it would just be the 5th largest economy. You find smart and stupid people everywhere. Stop being a people pleaser and call people out on their BS. Comment 2. She totally gaslit you. You heard her when she was the one doing all the insulting. You are being unreasonable by not letting her insults go. How dare you risk your friendship by not letting her insult you freely? What the heck? Honestly, screw her. And screw your husband for not standing up for you. Instead, he laughed with her while she was insulting you. Again, what the heck? I'm actually pissed for you right now. Now, for the update. Thank you for the comments on my last post. It's been a week since the dinner incident with Sarah, and a lot has happened since then. The day after our confrontation, I received a lengthy text message from her. In it, she apologized for her behavior and acknowledged that she had been insensitive and dismissive of my feelings. She admitted that she often makes jokes at my expense without considering how they might affect me, and she promised to be more mindful of her words in the future. I appreciated her apology, but I couldn't help but feel that it was a bit too little. Too late. This wasn't the first time Sarah had made me feel inferior or ignorant, and I had already brought up these issues with her in the past. It felt like she was only apologizing because I had finally called her out on it, not because she genuinely understood the impact of her actions. Despite my reservations, I decided to accept her apology and move forward. We had been friends for so long, and I didn't want to throw that away over one incident. However, as the week went on, I started to notice a pattern in Sarah's behavior that I hadn't fully recognized before. It began with small things, like her correcting my German pronunciation or explaining cultural references to me as if I were a child. At first, I brushed it off as her trying to be helpful, but then I remembered how she had translated for me at the restaurant, even though we both spoke German. It dawned on me that Sarah had a habit of treating me like I was less capable or intelligent than her, simply because I was American. This realization brought back memories from our early friendship, when Sarah would often make jokes about Americans being uncultured or uneducated. At the time, I had laughed along with her, thinking that she saw me as an exception to the stereotype. But now I wondered if she had ever truly seen me as an equal. As I grappled with these thoughts, I confided in my husband about my concerns. He listened patiently as I explained how Sarah's behavior made me feel, and he admitted that he had noticed it too. He apologized for laughing along with her at the restaurant and for not standing up for me in the moment. Together, we decided that I needed to have an honest conversation with Sarah about our friendship and the way she treated me. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew that I deserved to be respected and valued by my friends. So I invited Sarah out for coffee and laid everything out on the table. I told her how her comments and actions made me feel like she didn't see me as an equal, and how I had been struggling with these feelings for a long time. I also acknowledged my own role in allowing her behavior to continue by not speaking up sooner. Sarah was visibly upset by my words, and at first she tried to defend herself by saying that she never meant to hurt me. But as I continued to explain my perspective, she began to see how her actions could be interpreted as condescending or dismissive. We had a long and emotional conversation, and in the end, Sarah apologized again for her behavior. She admitted that she had been projecting her own insecurities onto me, and that she had been using humor as a way to cope with her own struggles as an expatriate. She promised to work on being a better friend and to listen more carefully to my feelings in the future. I left the conversation feeling relieved and hopeful for our friendship. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a step in the right direction. I knew that it would take time and effort from both of us to rebuild the trust and respect that had been damaged, but I was willing to put in the work. Looking back on the past week, I realized that this experience has taught me a lot about myself and my relationships. I've learned that I need to be more assertive in standing up for myself and my feelings, even when it's difficult or uncomfortable. I've also learned that true friendship requires honesty, empathy, and a willingness to grow and change together. As I move forward, I'm committed to being more mindful of my own behavior and to surrounding myself with people who uplift and support me. I know that there will be more challenges and obstacles ahead, but I feel stronger and more resilient than ever before. Thank you for reading and for your continued support. It means the world to me to have a community of people who understand and relate to my experiences as an expatriate and a woman of color. Until next time, take care. Am I the idiot for making my pregnant wife cry over a swimsuit comment? Am I the idiot for telling my 16-year-old wife that people might not think she is pregnant? My wife of 8 years is 4 months pregnant, and we're currently on a beautiful beach vacation. She's always been a naturally thin woman, and prior to getting pregnant, led Pilates and yoga classes. She's the kind of person who takes a ton of pride in her physical health. A few days before this trip, she wanted me to go swimsuit shopping. I agreed, and we went to a few different stores. Every shopping trip ended in her crying in the dressing room because she hates the way her body looks. She can't get over the fact that she has a belly now, and things don't fit the same. I think she looks incredible, and I was extremely patient throughout the swimsuit shopping fiasco. She kept calling herself fat and being pretty dramatic about everything. Finally, she settled on something. I kept assuring her over and over that I think she looks incredible. She does. Fast forward to this morning, we decided to go to the pool. I'm getting our son ready, and she comes out in her new swimsuit. I tell her she looks cute, and I love it. I then said something that had the same reaction as if I spread my butt cheeks apart and took a shoot on a 5-star restaurant table. I said, "Honestly, babe, people might not even think you're pregnant." She looked stunned and horrified. She asked, "You don't think people will know I'm pregnant? My stomach is huge." And she's right. It's a decent size compared to her pre-pregnancy body. But people have stomachs that are that size without being pregnant. And that's all I was trying to say. Immediate tears, immediately freaking out and changed into clothes, and is now refusing to come down to the pool. She said she doesn't want people to think she has a big belly. She wants people to think she's pregnant. I told her I can't control what people think, and that people might not realize she's pregnant. I started to get really pissed off because I personally have a bit of a belly, and she's making it seem like it's so insulting to have that. I genuinely don't understand the big deal. I think she's being ridiculous. She cares too much about what people think, and is now ruining our trip by staying inside and not making memories with her son. Instead, she's crying in a hotel room, throwing it in my face that she paid for everything for this trip and I ruined it for her. I love her more than anything and find her sexy as hell, pregnancy or not. But this is getting out of hand, and I'm fed up with all this talk about her feeling insecure when she still looks perfectly fine. ETA. Many people suggesting she has body dysmorphia, eating issues, etc. While I understand that it comes across that way from this post, it couldn't be further from the truth. I've known my wife for 15 years. She has never displayed eating issues or body image issues. She simply takes pride in being healthy and has worked hard to be fit. She gets a kick out of sculpting her body, and I think being pregnant makes her lose control of that ability. Since finding out she's pregnant, she's taken a step back from working out. If she was continuing to work out more or skimping on meals, I'd be concerned. But I think she's not used to seeing a bigger version of herself in the mirror and having trouble finding clothes that fit her. Thank you everyone for the input. I apologized to her and explained where I was coming from. I was trying to downplay her belly size, which was a huge mistake, because honestly, she's pretty big LOL and very much knows it. Thanks again everyone, we're off to enjoy our vacation now. Last edit because this has gained more traction than I anticipated. People are jumping to the conclusion that she has an eating disorder because she doesn't want to be perceived as fat. Not wanting to look fat doesn't mean you automatically have a mental health issue or eating disorder. I looked into eating disorders mentioned, and she doesn't fit the bill for any of them. But it was worth looking into, just in case. She doesn't act like this when not pregnant. She waited 2 years after the last pregnancy before getting back in the gym, despite gaining weight. There's nothing else I can possibly say without someone countering and say she could still have one. So be it, if you think that, then fine. But it's not helpful. She didn't want to come down to the pool because she was crying. Again, she's pregnant. Hormones. I could have been more sensitive. We kissed and made up. She rocked the bump the rest of the day. Again, thanks to everyone who offered different perspectives. Adios, y'all. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The time between becoming pregnant and appearing pregnant is absolutely mind-boggling. Because it's true, people just assume you're bloated or oddly shaped. Nothing fits well and you feel out of sorts with your body. No idiots here. Just kindly and considerately explain what you really meant. That you think she looks so good that people won't even take a second look at her stomach. You can add, of course, if you looked closely, you would see she's pregnant. But from afar, her stomach looks flat. Comment 2. You say she definitely doesn't have an eating disorder, but being obsessed with exercise can be a very similar thing. You carefully worded it that she takes great pride in her physical health. But her actions demonstrate that a lot of it is about looks, specifically being slim. Hopefully, I am being paranoid. But please be vigilant that she does not engage in any dietary or exercise practices that might harm your baby. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a week since my last post, and I wanted to give you all an update on what's been happening. First off, thank you for all the support and advice you gave me. It really helped put things into perspective. So, after our little disagreement at the pool, my wife and I had a heart-to-heart talk. She opened up about how she's been feeling insecure about her body changes during pregnancy. She confessed that she's been struggling with the idea of gaining weight and not being able to control her body the way she used to. I listened and tried to be as understanding as possible. We decided to spend the rest of our vacation focusing on enjoying each other's company and making memories with our son. We went on a few family-friendly adventures, like a dolphin-watching boat tour and a visit to a local aquarium. It was great to see my wife smiling and having fun again. However, a couple of days later, I made a mistake that changed everything. We were getting ready for dinner, and I noticed that my wife was wearing a loose-fitting dress. Without thinking, I jokingly said, "Wow, you could probably hide a whole watermelon under there." I immediately regretted it when I saw the hurt look on her face. She didn't say anything at the time, but later that night she broke down in tears. She told me that my comment made her feel like I thought she was huge and unattractive. I tried to apologize and explain that I was just trying to be funny, but the damage was done. The next day, things were tense between us. My wife was distant and barely spoke to me. I knew I had to do something to make it right. I decided to plan a special surprise for her. I arranged for a couple's spa day at the resort. I booked us massages, facials, and a private yoga session. I wanted to show her that I appreciated her and thought she was beautiful no matter what. When I surprised her with the spa day, she was touched. We spent the day relaxing and reconnecting. During our yoga session, the instructor guided us through some gentle stretches and breathing exercises. It was a moment of peace and bonding for us. As we were leaving the spa, my wife turned to me and said, "Thank you for this. I know I've been difficult lately, but it means a lot that you planned this for me." I hugged her and told her that I loved her and would always be there for her. Looking back, I realized that my wife's insecurities about her body during pregnancy stem from her past. She once told me that when she was a teenager, she struggled with her weight and was teased by her classmates. It took her years to develop a healthy relationship with her body and fitness. Now, being pregnant has brought up some of those old insecurities. She's worried about gaining too much weight and not being able to get back in shape after the baby is born. I understand now that my comments, even when well-intentioned, can be hurtful and triggering for her. Moving forward, I'm going to be more mindful of my words and actions. I want to be a supportive and understanding partner, especially during this special time in our lives. I know that my wife is going through a lot, both physically and emotionally, and I need to be there for her every step of the way. In the end, our beach vacation had its ups and downs, but I think we grew closer as a couple. We learned the importance of communication, empathy, and supporting each other through the challenges of pregnancy and parenthood. Thank you again for reading and for all your advice. It's been a learning experience, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to grow and strengthen my relationship with my amazing wife. Am I the idiot for telling my husband his mom can't force a bond with our baby? 26-year-old female. I've been with my husband since we were 14, and we just had a baby 10 months ago. I have always gotten along with my mother-in-law. She's a very sweet woman who would literally take the shirt off her back to make sure I am okay. I love this woman tremendously. But for some reason, every single time she has come over to see the baby, my daughter screams bloody unalive the entire time she's here. She doesn't do this with anyone else, but literally the second my mother-in-law walks through the door and my daughter sees her, she is in my ear screaming, hyperventilating, and inconsolable. It's been like this since she was born. My mother-in-law first visited when she was a 4-day-old baby, and it was the same thing then. We have never been super cautious about having people come over to see our daughter, but like I said, she's not like that with anyone else. Like some people, she doesn't want touching her, but she never cries. My mother-in-law is just the complete opposite. She has been able to successfully hold her once without her screaming, but it was when she was holding her facing away from her, and my husband was entertaining her to keep her distracted. My mother-in-law comes over once a week, and honestly, I've just started completely dreading her visits because my daughter screams the entire time. And sometimes my mother-in-law doesn't leave for a couple of hours. It's not fun for anyone involved. Well, she came here yesterday, and my husband is starting to get irritated by the fact that our daughter refuses to warm up to his mother because she's been a huge part of our lives. So he suggested that she start coming here more often than she already does now to basically attempt to force the bond. I personally know it doesn't work like that. I mean, if the bond was going to happen right now, it would have happened already. She simply does not like my mother-in-law. I thought maybe it was the perfume my mother-in-law wore, so she stopped wearing perfume, but that did nothing. I told her not to wear her jewelry to see if that helped, but again, that did nothing. I've even had her put her hair up, thinking maybe my daughter was getting overwhelmed with not being able to see her face completely, and that actually made it worse. I've told her to stop baby talking to her, because she has a very high-pitched baby talk voice, but her normal voice didn't calm the baby down either. And honestly, I'm exhausted and fed up with trying. I don't think we should try. I think we need to let it go and let it form naturally. She will warm up to her eventually in her own time. But my husband is basically just not okay with it, all because my mom came here to see us for the first time last month. She lives in the UK, and traveling is hard to the US for her, and our daughter immediately loved her and didn't want her to set her down. So my husband felt slighted about it, and as I said, he wants his mom to come here more. Well, usually I don't mind when my mother-in-law stops by, but she came by unannounced this morning at 8:30 a.m., and I mean, I had just woken up with the baby. She had a long night teething, so I'm talking like 3 hours of sleep. She comes in and says that my husband told her to come over and hang out for the day. She said she cleared her entire schedule to be here. I just kind of shook my head and said, I really don't want to deal with the baby screaming all day long. I wish you guys had run this by me. You know I love having you here, but this whole let's force a bond nonsense is dragging me mentally. You guys should have asked me. She looked hurt and said, It's okay, sweetie, I can go. And she left a few minutes later. But now my husband is mad at me, insisting that this would have worked. Am I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. My child would cry whenever she saw my father or his father, Grandpa, and they found it pretty hilarious. My father would say, Dang, I must be so ugly that I make babies cry. My child eventually warmed up to them, but it wasn't forced. There are probably plenty of studies that would side with you, but completely banning her from seeing your baby might be a little over the top. Just limit the time she spends with them so it's not too hard on everyone. Not the jerk, NTA, because it sounds like your husband is making you deal with the aftermath every time. Comment 2. Not the jerk, NTA, but your husband, DH, is going to be persistent about this. So what if DH and you take the baby to a local playground once or twice for 15, 20 minutes to get her used to it? Then, after a couple of times, Grandma can show up and join you. If your baby is occupied and has both parents present and Grandma is not front and center, maybe your daughter will accept her presence. Eventually, maybe just DH takes the baby out to the playground and his mother joins, and you get 20 minutes to yourself. Heaven forbid. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my update. It's been a week since I last posted and a lot has happened. The day after my mother-in-law's unannounced visit, my husband and I got into a huge argument. He accused me of not wanting his mom to bond with our daughter and said I was being selfish. I tried to explain that forcing the bond wasn't going to work and that our daughter needed time, but he wouldn't listen. He stormed out of the house saying he needed some space. Later that day, my mother-in-law called me. She apologized for coming over unannounced and said she understood why I was upset. She then revealed something that shocked me. Apparently, when my husband was a baby, he had the same reaction to his grandmother. He would scream and cry whenever she held him. My mother-in-law said it took months for him to warm up to her. I was stunned. Why hadn't my husband told me this before? When my husband came home that evening, I confronted him about what his mom had told me. At first, he denied it, but eventually he admitted that it was true. He said he didn't want to tell me because he was embarrassed and didn't want to give me a reason to keep our daughter away from his mom. I was hurt that he had kept this from me, but I also understood where he was coming from. Over the next few days, my husband and I had several long conversations about the situation. We both agreed that forcing the bond wasn't the answer, but we also didn't want to give up on the idea of our daughter having a close relationship with her grandmother. We decided to take a step back and let things happen naturally. My mother-in-law has continued to visit once a week, but we've kept the visits shorter and more low-key. Instead of trying to hold our daughter, she's been focusing on playing with her and reading her stories. It seems to be helping a bit. Our daughter still cries sometimes, but not as intensely as before. However, just when things seemed to be improving, we hit another roadblock. My husband's sister, who lives out of state, called to say she was planning a visit next month. She wants to stay with us for a week and spend as much time as possible with our daughter. I love my sister-in-law, but the thought of having her here for a week, on top of everything else, is overwhelming. I haven't told my husband yet, but I'm considering asking his sister to stay at a hotel instead. I know it might cause some tension, but I'm not sure I can handle the added stress right now. I'm already struggling to balance work, motherhood, and my own mental health. I don't want to be selfish, but I also need to take care of myself. As I reflect on the past week, I realize that becoming a parent has brought up a lot of complicated emotions and family dynamics. I love my daughter more than anything, but I also feel like I'm constantly trying to navigate everyone else's expectations and desires. It's exhausting, and I worry that I'm not doing enough. But I'm trying to take things one day at a time and focus on what's best for my daughter and our family. I know that building relationships takes time and patience, and I'm willing to put in the work. I just hope that everyone else can be understanding and supportive along the way. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks again for reading and for all your advice and kind words. It means a lot to have this community to turn to during these challenging times. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!